Welcome back to the podcast. This is Once Upon a Crime. So this is podcast number 5, and we'll be talking about the petition of the Black Lives Matter movement. So, as you know, the Civil Rights Movement was in 1954. That time to the present, it is better in a way, but still there can be more that can be done in our criminal justice system.
Like, schools were desegregated, and there are more opportunities for African Americans and minorities in general, but
people don't implicate it.
Yeah.
It's more like the bad guy persona, as in, if you're this ethnicity, you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
And like, but as we know from news sources and stuff, as we talked about in our first podcast of Emmett Till, lynching is still occurring.
And it was 2021? Yeah, 2021 was the anti-lynching act from President Biden.
Yes. And the difference between the Civil Rights Movement and the Black Lives Matter movement is that the Civil Rights Movement was a racial oppression based on Jim Crow, and for the Black Lives Matter, it's the devaluation of human life in all domains of American life.
Yeah.
And we can see this from numerous rallies that occurred due to big events that blown up over social media.
Yeah, and we saw the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2013 by Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tomidi. It began as a hashtag after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, a Florida neighborhood watch captain who shot Trayvon Martin. He had a history of reporting to 911 neighborhood drama, from unruly people at the pool, potholes, dump trash, and kids playing in the streets. But at one point he saw a change in his community, and there was an increase of crime. There were more burglaries and a shooting. And Zimmerman reported that it was mainly young Black men. So one day he shot and killed unarmed Trayvon Martin and was not crimed because, quote, Zimmerman was not acting outside of the legal boundaries of the Florida statute by carrying a weapon when the incident occurred. This is from Stanford Police Chief Bill Lee. And you can take this bullet point and highlighting it, just so that you can talk.
This is just the beginning of the movement, and while it focuses on the mistreatment of Black Americans in general, there seems to be more focus on police mistreatment of minority Americans, and that is very true.
Yeah. Because
do you know who Eric Garner is? So that happened in 2016. The same thing occurred six years later with the George Floyd thing, and I'm just like, did we really not change within those 6 months?
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be 6 months because...
6 months. 6 years.
Yeah.
6 years. Sorry.
And with the Rodney King in 1991, we saw that. But let's first talk about use of force and use of deadly force when it comes to police officers and minorities, specifically Black Americans. So use of force is normally determined by class rather than race, which means that if you come from an impoverished community, you are more likely to have force when there is police intervention. But because there is like this racial class difference, we see Black men most likely being at the hand of this use of force. Black men are 3 times more likely to experience force than their white counterparts.
So deadly force is defense of life rule, only use deadly force when protecting lives. But we've been seeing over and over again that if there is a person of non-white origins, they will automatically just pull out the weapons, and we see that multiple times happening in either current events or past events that blown up all over social media or news coverage. And like, it kind of like it's shocking and sad, because it's the ratio of 7-1 using deadly force on African Americans versus like the white counterpart. And I'm just saying that like you could have the most dangerous white person in the world, and you would just be handcuffing them while the black counterpart would be on the floor with weapons pointing at them.
Yeah.
And my issue is, where one life is no greater than the other? Where does that stand?
Yeah. And I think all of this comes back to what you said, repetition of history. We still see the repercussions of slavery in our society just because of the way that Black lives are, devalued.
And also to add on to that, it's also that these police officers who are using their authority over those that are underrepresented to their own advantage, like Eric Garner's death, that the person that chokehold him is not even prosecuted.
Yeah.
He's still walking around. Granted, he's not an NYPD officer no more, but he's not in jail.
Yeah. And I think one of the first incidences of like mass televised Black Lives Matter movements before the Black Lives Matter movement was a thing was March 3rd, 1991, when a paroled felon, Rodney King, led a police on a high-speed chase through the streets of Los Angeles County before eventually surrendering. He was intoxicated and uncooperative, and he resisted arrest, and because of this, he was brutally beaten by police officers Lawrence Powell, Theodore Brisno, and Timothy Wind.
This was all caught on video camera and broadcasted to the public, highly televised, and there are riots that lasted for 6 days. And in that 6 days, it killed 63 people, with 2,383 people injured. After that, the California Army National Guard, the Army as well as the Marine Corps provided reinforcements to re-establish control, and King advised for a peaceful end to the conflict. And this is in 1991.
Yeah, 1991. So like honestly, this person was just holding like a video recorder. Yeah, like really old stuff. I don't know, I kind of wouldn't expect something so early.
But I find it crazy that even though like we have like better technology and so forth, we're still using our cameras as like evidence proof.
Yeah.
And I find that like crazy.
So summer 2020, there was a focus on the Black Lives Matter movement after the killing of George Floyd. And I think, in my personal opinion, I don't know if there's any research to back this up, but that one of the reasons that the Black Lives Matter movement was so prevalent during this time was because it was during the pandemic and there was a lot of downtime and not much like activities that you could do. So people focused on like the oppression and movement at that time.
Yeah. So George Floyd incident happened in March or May of 2020.
It was May 2020.
May 2020. And then COVID started to slowly ease. But yeah, there was just a lot of people like during the pandemic who were still protesting with masks on. And I just found that like really like heartwarming, because like there are still people who was in the pandemic who still was trying to be like, hey, this is still a social issue.
Yeah.
Amidst the pandemic.
Yeah, like even with the risk of being outside, people still wanted to raise attention to everything that was happening.
Because nobody was either at work or nor school.
Yeah.
It was quote unquote a good timing.
Yeah. But let's talk about what actually happened with George Floyd, just in case our viewers don't know what happened.
So George Floyd was a 46-year-old African American man. He was arrested for suspicion of using a counterfeit $20 bill, and from there the Minneapolis Police Department knelt on Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes while Floyd was handcuffed and lying face down in the streets. There are 2 officers also assisting and also pointing a gun at Floyd's head prior to Floyd being in handcuffs. And From there, George Floyd died. He went unconscious and died due to someone's knee on their neck.
Yeah.
Yes.
The medical examiner ruled his death homicide by suffocation.
And that's what happened. Very similar to the Eric Garner story, but this is just a different location and a different time.
And sort of a spin off of the Black Lives Matter movement is the say their names. It was coined to bring attention to the victims of systemic racism and racial injustice in the United States. And on their website, you see hundreds of examples of mistreatment and the stories from the present all the way back to 1882. And when I say there's hundreds of examples and stories.
But as you see, like, history is repeating itself. It's just that we just need to find a way to push forward. And I think it's just be open-minded and just be reminded, like, hey, it doesn't matter on the description of your skin color. It matters about your actions towards something, whether it's illegal or legal.
And we see calls for like more diversity in the police force and more racial training or cultural training.
Yes. But right now, I'm pretty sure there's a shortage of police officers right now.
So it is.
This is shortage of everything right
now. We see that history is repeating itself, but we hope for a future where everyone is equal in America and equally treated by the police.
But that is all for our podcast today.
This has been Once Upon a Crime. Bye.